anything, the conversation that we need to engage in is so important. So thank you very much that you came. Cameron Dagman, I'm going to ask, as I introduced them, I'm going to ask them to come to the front.
For me, I'm suggesting that we try and look at this topic around deepening democracy and whether the new dawn, which is being talked about at the moment, and some people say, well, what is the new dawn actually? In some way, I think it's really a moment in our country where we do have an opportunity. I think if we are able to be very direct and honest with each other about what has happened, and importantly what needs to be done to deal with the pathologies that our society faces, it is that moment that I think for me the new dawn represents. I also think that our constitution, which is a product of those struggles, has a lot of guidance in regard to what we could and should be doing in regard to deepening democracy. And I think it's one of the documents in our country that is not read enough and not internalized enough, because for me it does contain a very clear outline of what we need to do around redress, and a strong focus on the second generation rights, which we often don't talk about enough, and we simply focus on the democratic and liberal rights that are contained in this constitution as well. And the third lens in terms of deepening democracy is for what? Why do we need to deepen democracy? And for me, that goes directly to the triple challenge that our country faces in regard to deep levels of inequality, huge levels of poverty and unemployment. But fundamental to all of this, I would argue, is the issue of the level of consciousness in our society. How deep is that consciousness? I think it is. Poland, Czechoslovakia. Yeah. And he was actually talking, Father Courtney, about the difference between hope and faith. Okay, and he was talking as a person of faith as well, but he said that he believes that hope exists when someone has consciousness which allows them to understand the situation that they are in as a person and their community, but then also understand what are the concrete steps or things that should be done by yourself or your community to actually change the conditions in which you live.
Asanda in front. This is an intergenerational conversation. And I want to recognize the space that young people play a part, them continuing, sustaining and growing this democracy.
Much of my experience in terms of governance and democracy has been through student governance. And so this is the perspective that I'll be giving. I see a state of the society where people, number one, see themselves in the leadership that they elect. Is that number two, people are enabled to exercise their agency to fully participate, right, in forming our society and in governance processes. But also that there's a mechanism that takes that participation and people exercising their agency and institutionalizes it into something. In 2016, we organized ourselves as students around the housing crisis at the University of Cape Town. And we firstly called for the relooking of all institutional policies so that they speak to the changing demographic of students. But my point is that at the core of it, the youth were part of driving that process. We wanted a space where we could meet and make intellectual but also very real arguments about our experience, right? As marginalized groups of students, maybe not in the context of the country, but in the context of UCT, because you don't just carry yourself, you're not an individual, you carry a community, right? And that community needs to guide your work at the end of the day. So you need to give them space. And a part of that space is not just creating a platform, but it's also making them feel the need to go there and actively engage.
We've got Dr. Mapele.
Talk about the need to deepen democracy. We need to draw on Africa's wisdom and ask ourselves, since 1994, when we got into this new democracy, did we take all the steps that lay the ground for building a deep, strong, inclusive, participatory democracy? You cannot be a if you have not healed the wounds of humiliation. What you see on the Cape Flats is the result of systematic humiliation of the people who lived in District 6, were taken as rubbish and thrown on the Cape Flats. We need to heal those wounds. The soldiers can do it, I agree with you. We need, as the mama said, social workers. We need other fundis to go and pray and help those people to heal, not just those people, all of us. Second, that healing will lay the foundations for a democratic and open society, in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is protected. Not that tenders are given to this party or that person, because all of us are equal. Every country has got civic education. That is, every country that loves democracy has civic education. So kids from K to 12 and at university are taught about what it means to be a citizen. Every child in every school gets civic education based on reasons.
Let me do my best. Thank you very much. I want to start by saying that I believe that the challenge of our democracy at the moment is that the 1994 paradigm is inadequate. And we persist with this now. Young people and people in general are put off by political party structures. And if you look at the reasons why that would be, look at the state of the three spheres of government. What is it that we encounter? It doesn't need people to say what they need. The colonial mind determines what you need. And based on what it determines you need, it then provides for what you need. If you're homeless, you find a place where we can wash you and clean you up. But the deeper needs are not taken into consideration of why you're there on the street in the first place, what brought you here. The liberated mind, in terms of my understanding, looks at the human being and asks the question, what is it as a human being that you deserve? How do you deserve to be treated? What is it that you deserve for society to be doing for you? And I think it brought me to the understanding of the loss of the soft skills of humanity. In the 1994 paradigm, the primary discourse, there are two discourses I want to identify. The primary discourse was a discourse on reconciliation. That was the 1994 paradigm. But there was a subservient discourse. That discourse was a discourse on poverty and inequality. 25 years on, what has shifted is that the dominant discourse at the moment is the discourse on poverty. And we haven't seen that shift in paradigm. The subservient discourse is the discourse on reconciliation. You can reconcile race. You can't reconcile wealth and